Well, hello, Samantha. It's a pleasure to have you on today.
It is a pleasure to be here, my friend.
And speaking of that, you and I have known each other for a long, long while. I think we both started in the business when we were 14 years old. Uh, we met in the early days of digital media back when the World Wide Web had just sort of become a thing. And I
Yeah.
believe, if memory serves me correctly, through an organization called BIMA, Boston Interactive
Oh
Media
my
Association.
gosh, yes. We were cutting edge.
We
We
were
were
cutting edge.
cutting edge. Yes.
And I think if also if memory serves me correctly, you were at Disney and I was at Fidelity
Yep.
Investments,
Yep.
which feels like eons ago. Let's talk a little bit about what you remember from those early pioneering days, because I think you were a pioneer and it's a good backstory to set us up for where you've arrived today.
Great. So how can I start?
Just tell me what got you into digital media in the days where
Oh,
no one even knew what that was.
okay. Well, it's actually something I'm often asked by young people meaning like, in their 20s, kind of for career advice. And the only thing I can say, like without any hesitation, is go into an industry that's just beginning or that's, really not well formed yet. And that's my experience with digital was hopping into it inadvertently without any intent. In 1995, I'd been working at a literary agency as a like assistant to the assistant to the assistant person. I'm making 18 grand a year, which is so weird to think of. And I was offered a job that was straight up like, this is how the world. It was a cooler name, Interactive Imaginations, and it was $25,000, which meant I could, you know, properly pay rent without, I was bartending also. So I could pay rent and not try to bartend at night. So that is how Interactive Imaginations was a startup, did head-to-head gaming, and went on to become 24/7 Media way later. So IPO'd 10 years later. And it was an absolute christening into what startup culture meant at the time, and to me still means, which is that you do everything and you do it with total enthusiasm and a complete learning mentality. And, many things will be broken in the path to getting one or two things right. It was a pleasure, but it was not intentional. And then from there, there was nobody working in digital, and so it was considered, the thing on the side of if you couldn't be in TV or print, maybe radio, then you'd be in digital, which was, those of us who were there, we were very much like in a little cube somewhere. And, we thought the internet might go away anyway. So, not so it was a great place to be because the internet and digital media gained power, there were just not a whole lot of people who had had any experience. So 2 years experience became, you know, something significant. So that's how, yeah,
No, I
yeah.
love it. I mean, just funny little side story for me because I'm always interested to see how people did get into digital, especially early days. So I did nothing in the marketing realm and I joined a direct marketing agency because I actually knew how to do IT stuff. My dad was a
Oh,
computer programmer. They were a direct marketing firm, so I sort of learned, and this was just after the World Wide Web was born. So I thought, let me learn how to, do HTML. Let me, learn Photoshop, and I can create banner ads. So 2 years later, because I knew this agency was going to get where I wanted to go, Fidelity Investments was hiring for digital marketers, and I was like, oh, well, I know how to do that stuff, even though,
mhm.
and so it was one of those things where, what do they call it? Like I was queen of the pigs or something like that. So
Yeah, it's like the tallest of the short people or the like, what, yeah, I,
yeah,
I hear you. I was similarly of the people who were clueless. I was maybe the least clueless because I
yes.
could throw out some acronyms and some like talk about 468 by 60 banners and,
Oh my
you
goodness.
and like this, how many, I don't know, anything that the IAB started publishing, we knew that already. So that was like really ahead of the curve.
Well, one crazy thing just for people, listening in, when I first started at Fidelity and we were doing banner ads, literally every different website had a different size and spec that they would require.
Yeah.
And so you'd have to resize banners like 5,000 different times. and
Yep.
we
And
do
I
not
didn't
have
even
this
know
thing.
that was weird because I was new
I
to
know.
media. I didn't even know that was a strange thing, but
No.
everyone would complain about it. I was like, wait, it's all different sizes. Lovely. And then the IAB, thank you very much, came
So
along.
bless you, IAB, for bringing order to something that was the Wild West. I do want to talk a little bit about something you touched on, and that is you've had a very interesting career in the sense that you're now the CEO of She Media, which is a company whose mission and purpose we'll get into in a minute. But along the way, you've held some very senior positions, right? So at Alloy Media and Marketing, you were the EVP of strategy, strat development.
Mhm.
At Passenger, you were the chief marketing officer, and then Recycle Bank, you were the chief revenue officer,
Review?
which I think is a little unusual to sort of cover all those, but they're all related, right? And so my gut is those have all set you up successfully to be the CEO of this company. But let's talk about two or three lessons you learned along the way that help you in your day to day as the big boss at She Media.
Yeah, I think that, gosh, I think one of the lessons I learned mid career, kind of maybe say 12 years ago, 15 years ago, was that a great idea does not a great company make, and execution is really the it is the crux of success, is how you take an idea, a concept that sounds cool, sounds good, that can get people's attention and identify some white space, but then execution is, is so important. That might be really obvious to a lot of people, but I've been around some great ideas without any strong execution strategy. And I think that, that was something I learned along the way, and learned by virtue of, participating in a company that had a great idea, totally new, and just no execution plan, which I didn't really think was my problem at the time. I didn't, I wasn't my job. But now, as I move forward, I realize that, whatever size company you're in, it's hard to be successful if you don't, if you don't understand both the vision, mission, and, the strategy, and the tactical plan. So I think understanding that full kind of pyramid, became important to me. And then making sure other people understand it is probably the second point. So in other words, I don't I want all editorial folks in my organization to understand the economics of media. I want the folks who are selling or building audience to also understand, what it takes to produce, an article or a video, or, how we choose what's most relevant to our audience. They're all overlapping now. It's not just about being, thoughtful to your colleagues down the hall. It's truly, if you're goal is to engage a human with content, or of any kind, um, you need to understand the whole ecosystem nowadays. So yeah. So I'd say those are the big lessons. They're kind of macro.
Yeah, and those are good. Thank you for sharing those because I think, while, like you said, it might be obvious, I think few people understand how important execution is. And
Hmm.
one of mine is always networking. And I'm like, I know that you know that that's the case, but you can't do enough of it. And I think it's why
Hmm.
people like you and me have sort of been successful in our journey, right? We've spent the time to get to know a lot of smart people along the way. Speaking of being multidimensional, one of the things that I was sort of intrigued by, and I follow you on, I think, Instagram, and I've seen a few pictures of you surfing, but you taught girls lacrosse. You are big time into surfing. How do you balance that with the day to day demands of being the CEO of a company that reaches 75 million people monthly? And, clearly, I'm sure you're on call all the time and have to keep sponsors happy and have to keep, writers happy and all this good stuff.
I sort of lost you for a second because I had a bandwidth problem over here. I'm so sorry.
Nope, that's all
So,
good. So, speaking of being multidimensional, I did read in your bio that you coached girls lacrosse. It also looks like you are big time into surfing, which I love, by the way. And how do you balance the personal life with the demands of being the CEO of a company, a media company that reaches $75 million, 75 million people a month? Because I'm sure, like, you're probably always on call, and you just disappeared on me. Okay, I'm gonna pause for a second.
How do I keep it real? I think that if I didn't have things like coaching, I play tennis whenever I possibly can. I surf whenever I can and whenever it's warm enough and not sharky enough. I
Not Sharky, that's a good one. I like that.
um, those are the things that get me out of my head. Like I'm really invested in not I'm really interested in how we find flow. It's a, I like the concept enough that we named one of our new publications Flow Space. I I cannot get out of my head of the ruminations that I don't really want to keep thinking about. I don't want those things sometimes banging around in my head because it's usually the things that are vexing. I can only get out of those if I get into a really present, tense, immersive state, which for me, if I were had better control over my mental faculties, I probably wouldn't need to be like in big waves or in a competitive match or whatever. But I do really seek out those experiences that generate a flow state for me. And those are you'll see the kinds of things I'm passionate about, like deep, heavy time with family and friends who I really adore. Um, doing things that are hard, even if they're, family can be hard. Those and hard physically, hard emotionally or mentally. Those are the things that get me out of my sort of counterproductive thinking. And so again, like some people can just meditate and be done with it. I really need those experiences in order to be effective anywhere else because truly I do not otherwise have much control over what's going on in my skull. So
Well, I love the intentionality there, and actually that was a much richer answer than I expected. So thank you for providing that because I think we do all need our ways to cope with our mental health, and I think we've become more aware of all of that, especially through the pandemic. But I think we can't sort of focus enough on our well-being and being in a good state of mind to be productive. So I love the way you answered that. Thank you. I do want to talk a little bit about something that is a little less appreciated or underappreciated by the current administration, and that is your focus over the course of your career in, this longstanding commitment to the advancement of equity and inclusion through media. So, what inspired you to carry that torch?
yeah, it's such a bummer that like it's uncool to be to be considerate. It used to
I
be
know.
cool. There was a time where it was cool, but or not to be considerate. I think just to be aware. I don't know. I think I've always had a pretty strong awareness of gender, um, gendered experiences, sort of different experiences that were based on gender. I was really early to that party, probably just because I was, I played sports and um, the locker rooms for starters, the game times, the fields. We would like troop 3 miles away or run 3 miles to get to a field while the guys were like right over there and they had Gatorade and we had warm
Yeah.
water. And so I think that there were little things where you're like, what's this about? Because when I went to public school, we all fought with each other. I was 5'8" at like 12, so I could play big sports. I kind of was like, wait, this is just as we get older, that's when you start seeing that our paths diverge based on biology or identity. And so I was aware of that. And then I also became aware, I think once you start getting interested in sort of roles and societal roles, of course became aware of some of the other marginalized groups, but I also had the benefit of going to a really diverse high school and middle school and grade school. And we had pretty robust conversations at a young age. My best friends are still a lot of the people I went to high school with. And it was good that we established some of these friendships when we were really young. So it was before we understood, anything about status and understood the inequality among our own friends. But I also worked in publishing for through my undergrad years, and I was a comparative literature major, which kind of pushes you into not the sort of white male canon, but into like other works. And I love fiction. So I read a lot of I read a lot. I read a lot by women in your classic sort of Jane Austen-y, Bronte's zone. But then I also read a lot. I did my thesis on Latin American women writers, and I read a lot of deeply affecting works by African, specifically Nigerian writers. I just I just found that we were really lacking something if we didn't maintain and engage, voices from different places. I don't know. I liked the content better, honestly, from my own consumption standpoint. And then you do start to see, I don't think I was at all wise enough to see the downstream effects of like four guys owning all media. But as that started to become more clear, whether I was talking about social platforms or publishers, the social platforms and search platforms and AI are going to be more concerning because you just don't have all the perspectives you think you do because you've got a lot of people posting to social, but the whole infrastructure and ecosystem is designed by pretty much one vision, I think I would argue, that doesn't contemplate a whole lot of a whole lot of things that I would find important. So I think I came to equity um, and an interest in different voices and representation by way of, I guess I'd start with sports and then go through, a pretty good New Jersey public school.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I mean, that's a very interesting way to answer that because I think a lot of people, I mean, I'm sure the fact that you are a female leader in a male dominated industry early days also contributed, but I love the sort of levels of the sports and the school and even the literary piece, right? And reading not just the classic women writers from the US or England, but also from, South America and Africa, et cetera. So I do also, because this is the podcast is partially about raising the voices of people that are doing societal good, and you inherently had that opportunity to do not only personally but also with the company you work for. And I think when I invited you onto the show, I mentioned that I wanted to talk about your commitment to women's health.
Mhm.
And one of the recent instances was the launch of the Future of Health at South by Southwest, which is a global conference known for innovation. What started to head you down the path of women's health and make it such an important mission to you and to She Media?
Like it's pretty it feels a little bit predictable if when I look at my own kind of career and my own areas of sort of professional and purpose driven focus. I do like tend to be aware of things that are like around me, which is kind of unimpressive. So I was a literature major, who had loads of diverse friends by virtue of a lucky draw in where I, went to school and how I was raised. And then I said like, and then, heading through into digital publishing, I consumed a lot of content, became interested in different voices. So I guess I'm saying that I'm tend to be influenced by what's right around me. With women's health, it did become clear to me from a business perspective first that women over 40 have very little representation in terms of what is being advertised, to whom it's being advertised, the images in advertising, and as with most marginalized populations, like there's women, and then then it gets only more profoundly inequitable as you move into further marginalized communities. So women of color, women of diverse ethnic groups, religion. So yeah, so I became interested in something that was way back in my earlier education, which was sort of the roles of women in society. And I became super driven by kind of this model that felt very Handmaid's Tale to me, where it was like, you've got your fertility years when you better make a kid because that is what you're here for. And I think and it occurred to me that we had all this innovation in fertility, which is awesome and gave a lot of women, myself included, more options. So that's great because there was a market for it, and there was a market for it, and we started talking about it. So we start talking about it, a market emerges, and there's loads of profit opportunity in the fertility industry. Pharma's on board. um, Lots of big investment, and science research is in the mix. I don't know what order this all happens in, but it was that explosive opportunity to take what was a pain point for a population and to turn it into a profit model, which then drove greater awareness. So I'm all for. I've intentionally stayed in profitable businesses because I believe that capitalist solutions are more likely to survive in terms of driving change, or to more likely to succeed. So, women over 40 was the next that it occurred to me. Basically, perimenopause, menopause, profoundly unsexy demographic to based on all the things we value. We meaning society, and probably I'm sure I was unwittingly involved in I am unwittingly involved in reinforcing these stereotypes. But, women after childbearing years, first of all, those who don't have kids are usually pretty marginalized, and it's considered a very unusual choice to, by choice, not have children. We even called at Blog Her, there's a whole community that was childless by choice, like you had to explain it. So that was fucked up. Then there's, after you've loss of fertility or beyond fertility that may have occurred as a function of having an illness like a breast cancer, and going into early menopause. These were all things that were just utterly, I was so freaking ignorant about that phase, which then I was, I guess it's kind of a complete approach. It's like, wait, why has it never occurred to me? I thought people were super old when they went through menopause. I did not understand that it was like, you sometimes hear jokes about hot flashes, but it's like kind of a profound physical and mental change. And then, you have the New York Times and the 70s just completely eradicating the idea. Well, the research, sorry, it was the NIH, but research indicating that women should not take hormone replacement therapy because it was going to definitely give everybody cancer. And so that was poorly done research, brought me to there's very little research, nothing had been done thereafter. And this was beginning to, like, as I was getting interested, it was also seeding into my demographic because I was and am the age that I was interested in. And so right when I was kind of getting excited about this as a business opportunity, as an area of underdeveloped market value, I read like this book, The XX Brain, came out from Dr. Lisa Mosconi, who's one of those, great experts we get to tangle with or interact with through the launch of Flow Space, our platform for women's health. She wrote about with Maria Shriver as kind of her and I think kind of mentor collaborator on brain health. She wrote all about the ways in which women are underserved through medical research and just some really almost comedic things. Like they would do research, the medical industry did research on small men instead of women, and like couldn't research on women in quotes because of hormones, because that would make us unreliable subjects. And so there's just all these things that were really interesting to me because I was like, oh, wait, you're supposed to exit society or just go take care of elder parents or something when you're 47 and a half. And that hadn't occurred to me. I don't think I pictured as part of that puzzle. I don't think I ever pictured life after 50, like, except that I hope I've had kids and had a good career. Like I'm going to go, you know, take a nap for the next 30 years.
Right.
And so I found, so women's health came to me by way of that intersection that sometimes happens where you've got a passion for it, like an interest in cultural evolution. You've got purpose element because you're like, wow, that's messed up that like we don't think women collectively, we probably don't think women have much of a societal role after 50. Like, what do they look like? They better try to look young. And what else though? Like you're not really a mommy, you're not really a daughter, you're probably past the time when you're, a really beloved, adorable member of a collegial group. I don't know. It just became really interesting to me, and I noticed the rooms where women were again exiting the boardrooms. It was sort of a departure, and that happened in particular during COVID, and in particular with women over 50. Probably as it's been studied since as a function of experiencing really detrimental symptoms of menopause. So now there's loads of innovation and pharmaceutical work, and that's been really cool. So I got to justify something I wanted to study and work on because it was also a big market opportunity, and that's gone really well for us. So it, lo and behold, there are not a lot of media media companies that are focused on serving women at this moment of extreme change. So we've been able to build a business there.
Bless you and bless She Media for doing that. And it's something that I'm actually very passionate about as well. So, and I appreciate the thoroughness of the answer on that one. Speaking of South by Southwest, which we just touched upon, something that I'm very passionate about, you've had a chance to interview at your labs that you do there, the official events at South by Southwest. You have the opportunity to interview some very impressive guests, particularly women, Katie Couric, Brooke Shields, and most recently comedian Chelsea Handler, who I get a chance to watch you interview. Do you get nervous when you do these interviews, or like how do you prepare for those?
That's funny. It's a complicated answer, so I'll just say I do get very nervous. Even if I prepare, I sometimes just black out. But there are sometimes when people like Brooke Shields are so awesome and easy to talk to. She's just delightful, and we had an easy rapport. And I kind of forgot not forgot, but I didn't have to ask the questions we'd prepared because many more interesting things came up. A person I was super nervous to interview at South by was Scott Galloway. The thing is, he interviews himself. So all you have to do is like sit there and put on a listen face and like nod from time to time. And if he really goes way off into like a thing that has zero to do with our subject matter, then you might endeavor to guide him back. But that dude interviews himself completely. So there's no reason to ever be nervous. Um, Katie's freaking delightful. She almost like makes you a good interviewer because she knows how to answer in such a way that she's setting you up for the next question. Chelsea Handler interviews herself. She's fun and awesome and wonderful and funny, and and really knows her script. She's a stand-up comedian. The people we end up interviewing are not normally that nervous making for me because they've already decided to show up for She Media. It's something that a lot of the thought leaders and sort of celebrities and amazing medical experts who show up for us, they've already kind of, we're not super famous. It's not like going on, I don't know, like I'm trying to think of something I'd really want to go on. I was going to say NPR, but that might not be that sexy. But like if you, it's not like going on the morning show or to that's morning show is the TV show about morning shows. So it's not like going on the Today Show or Good Morning America, but we don't even have, or like one of our sister pubs, like Rolling Stone stage or Variety stage. We're lesser known, we're smaller, scrappier, we're bigger actually in reach, but we're smaller as a company and certainly don't have the same legacy. But so people who show up for us, like you're one of them in the audience, like, or in partnerships, they already have decided probably that they are interested in how we all can sort of look at a happy world in which we consider lots of different voices and ask hard questions and laugh and try really hard to build bridges. So I think there's a component that I haven't ever been met with someone who is like a jerk on stage. But I do get super nervous, yeah, and sometimes I walk away and I'm like, shit, I didn't get anything, like I got too nervous and so I didn't like get anything new out of this person. Like there wasn't really a connection. Like I didn't like the person wasn't, we weren't vibing. And then that can be a bummer. But most of the people, certainly the people you just mentioned and any I'm mentioning are really smart and better at this than I will ever be. And so they know how to set me up for success, which is really nice.
That's a good way to do it. Well, it is funny. I don't know if you watch the show Hacks
Yeah, I
with
love
Julian Smart.
hacks. Yeah.
So we were watching the most recent episode the other day, and Katie Couric is on it. And I
Yes.
thought to myself, because I've also interviewed Katie on my previous show and totally agree, but I'm like, oh, I interviewed her. Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of cool to
Isn't that
see her on
wild? And
TV
she
and to,
doesn't act like she's the most like humble, just cool. Like the fact that so many people think they know her, like myself, like I think I know her, like I think we're buddies. Not really, but like so many of us believe, if you can make that many people believe they have a relationship with you, you can like move mountains. And she is everywhere. And she's one of those examples of someone who in their third chapter is just doing really cool stuff. And, that's the example we want to put out there.
Totally, totally. Couple more serious questions, then we'll get into some of the more fun ones. So the first part is, and you touched on this earlier, but back in May of 2023, I believe, if I have my timing right, you launched something called the Flow Health brand.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit more about this important initiative.
Well, it was I kind of ranted about my interest in women's health in their, over 40 in their third chapter during the time when hormonal changes have really kind of, along with lifestyle changes, are starting to dominate. And it's an area that is both poorly researched and poorly represented, but is really seeing a ton of change, which makes it fun to work in this space where the change is moving, I feel, really precipitously. So I was interested in going vertical into women's health, in part because of the business opportunity that my head of sales and marketing had articulated back to say, like, there's a lot of demand for what we do, but there's a desire to be able to really address people with chronic illnesses or people with neurological diseases. And so it was weird to launch a new brand in the midst of like the demise of publishing, but which I hope is not truly the demise, but it's definitely been very hard for independent publishers who are not platform based. But it made sense because of our existing competence from running Blog Her Health and from beginning to try out health forums at South by. We had the audience already, and so we could port some of that audience and work on converting people we already reached from a parenting perspective or beauty. And so I thought it was important to give women a space where they were being addressed, where their own health was being addressed. The majority of consumption of health content by women over 40 is for the benefit of someone else. It's for their kids or their parents or their husband or their wife. So I thought, is it cool? Is there an opportunity to get this woman out of a caregiver zone and look at her ability to, or encourage her to invest in herself, not in like a soft self-care, burn a candle and get a pedicure kind of way, but like really get the blood tests, do the MRI. And I'm really terrible at those things. So it's easy to have your N of one research study following you around.
Exactly. Um, well, thank you. Let's shift to the future and let's talk a little bit about what's on your radar these days, whether it's in regard to women's health. Where would you like to see society lean in more over the next 4 or 5 years?
I mean, there's quite a long list, but I'll go with an area I will go with research and action in women's health, specifically women over 40, over 50 who are in the third stage. I think it's a critical part of the population that is often sort of, if not excluded, just kind of ignored. And Hollywood's done a ton to advance opportunities for women who are in this third chapter. But I think it's a really critical population for leadership as well. So when you hit the years, I think we all probably feel like we're getting less, we know less over time, but we understand that what we don't know so much better and are less defensive and less, worried about looking silly or whatever. So I think women over 50 and 60 should be populating many more boards, many more uh, political rooms or political positions of power. I would love to see more women leading innovations in biotechnology. So, because I think that they would have identified earlier some of the challenges that they have up close experience with, and that will only come probably if we actually are invested and creating new profit opportunities within that market. So I'd like to see a lot more innovation in women's health, in particular with AI, which I think will really open up all sorts of equity opportunity with access to information. Just starting with telehealth, it's been great to see opportunities emerge for investment in mental health for people who can't make it to an office every day, or not every day, once a week. So
Right.
yeah, so I think access and inclusion through AI focused on women's health.
Well, amen to everything that you just said. All right, this is where we do shift to a lighter topic. We're not solving all of humanity's um,
Woes.
problems, woes. We do appreciate that you're doing that, though. So the first one is, what is the dirtiest sounding word that isn't dirty? Maybe one that's
I
a
tried to
particular
think
favorite.
of this and I was like, I couldn't. Okay, so this is not dirty. It doesn't sound dirty, but I feel like I don't like when people say the word pants. I get really uncomfortable. I will throw purse and it purse, pants, slacks. Those are just words that give me like the heebie-jeebies for no great reason, honestly. They don't sound dirty. They just sound creepy. And so I couldn't come up with like a one.
Like the word moist,
Oh,
right?
of
They're
course,
sort of
you
in
had to
that
put
same
it in the
category.
list. That's right there. It's like the vowels and the S is in the wrong place on all those. I don't know. Yeah, moist is breast. I don't like the word breast. I wish I did. It doesn't sound dirty again. It's certainly not dirty, although the internet probably blocks it. But I just like maybe it's just too real of a word. So anyway, those are my weird, very strange.
Well, I love that. We've talked about some of the famous people that you've interviewed or worked with. I'm sure you've met hundreds more in your life. Who have you been the most impressed with as you've gone down this journey?
Wow, I think I'm okay, so I probably already said some. I am really impressed by Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway. I am a diehard Pivot listener. And so Kara's right up there. Scott's brain is right up there. Kara's whole person would be right up there. Katie Couric, I'm very impressed by. Just again, because these people are like are making themselves accessible. I'd say that in particular about Katie. Let me think for a minute. Oh, I mean, Hillary Clinton. I know it was a long time ago, but I met Hillary a bunch of times, and she was I'm impressed by her not in the meeting moment. Like that's fine. But I'm so impressed by her brain. And actually, I will say the person I was probably most impressed by, and it was in the meeting times that we've had was Chelsea Clinton. I thought she was so flipping smart and focused and just she speaks in like thoughtful paragraphs that lead to a point. Even if she doesn't, you can tell she doesn't necessarily have that. She wasn't prepped for a certain question. She's spoken a few times at our events at Block Her and then with our teen council. So yeah, super impressed by Chelsea Clinton.
Good people, and for all the right reasons. Let's talk about a band that you wish you had seen in concert that never did.
So I'm like notorious for having extremely bad taste in music, like from my husband's
That's the beauty of this, though.
total
We want to know about the bad taste in
Oh, I mean,
music.
like, and I don't want to diss any of the bands I love. I'm not saying that they're bad just because I clearly have, very mainstream taste. But I thought about this one, and I didn't want to say some that are still alive and well, who I will still see. So I had to go with bands who are like broken up. And I would have loved to have seen the Go-Go's in concert because I'm a girl of the 70s and 80s, and Beauty and the Beat was such a like hallmark of my childhood, and I liked them all together. The drummer's amazing. So that would have been one of them.
I love it. That's a great choice. All right, just a couple more here. One of the most embarrassing moments in your life that you're willing to share with
God.
thousands and thousands of people.
Oh, God. I didn't see that one. And I've been asked that before, and I've never nailed it. I mean, I think I effectively have like blocked out the worst ones, probably. Like I've probably just completely eliminated them from my cognitive being. I don't have a great one. I mean, there's so many. It's like every day I'm embarrassed all the time. I'm now embarrassed that I can't think of an embarrassing moment. So I don't think I have a good one. I'm sorry.
Well, if this is as bad as it gets, then
Yeah, it's definitely not as bad
that's a
as
good
it
mark.
gets. It's like a lot of other people could tell you really embarrassing moments, but I don't have a perfect, or I don't have one that stands out from the pack.
You strike me though as someone that you're pretty even keeled and you roll with the punches, and so you probably, even if you do feel embarrassed, you don't ever let people see you sweat.
Well, I think it's funny when I'm embarrassed and ashamed are two different things. And
That's true.
I think
Yeah.
ashamed or you feel shame, that's very different. That's very unpleasant, whether it's warranted or not.
Yeah.
But embarrassed is usually funny. Like it's
Yeah,
usually
yeah, especially if you are
they're usually will
self-deprecating and
laugh.
you take instru.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah,
yep.
yeah.
All right. Second to last one is one person that you would like to meet. And they could be living or someone, historical that's no longer with us.
It's always funny when I'm asked this because I'm like, I don't just want to meet them though. I want to like be friends with them. I really want to be friends with Bruce Springsteen because I think we'd be super tight. Um, I would love to meet and like interview Abigail Adams. And I thought about that one ahead because I think she was so interesting in a time when we did also speak in paragraphs and like contemplate compromise and like things that we would have been so much too mad to have spoken about now, if as women in particular, but different political parties. And the guys all used great language as well. I'm not taking it away from them, but some of her letters to her husband were so freaking smart. And just I wonder how she lived her life. So she would have been a great interview.
Choice. And while we can't do anything to help fix that, I mean, you're in a position where you should be able to interview
I'm
Bruce,
gonna
right?
find Bruce. No, I mean he's in Rolling Stone all the time, which I want to do
Right,
sister props.
exactly.
They are not inviting me into the room to like be a Jersey girl all over him, but I am so impressed by him, especially recently. And I grew up with him because of my Jersey roots. And my dad's a Vietnam vet, and he did such amazing like he did a weirdly good job of inspiring and providing sociopolitical criticism. So I'm just a endless Bruce fan, but I like him as a fan. I don't need to meet him. I'm just gonna worship from a distance.
All right. Well, they do say sometimes don't meet your heroes, right?
Yes, exactly.
All right, last question. And I like to have people that are influential in the show, but they're also dedicated to societal good. So who should I have on the show?
Okay, I have two, and I'm going to introduce you to them directly. Natalie Nixon is one, and she is a thought leader, former professor, writer, um, consultant. She's on our board for Flow Advisory. She just wrote a book about creativity and kind of how we maintain that practice, almost your creative practice, as you're moving into, yeah, as you're attacking or taking on different business challenges. And she's just such a good thinker. So Natalie Nixon. And the other one I thought of was Dr. Kellyanne Neoitis, who's like I met her, or I found her on Peter Attia's podcast. And is a specialist in preventative neurodegenerative disease. And she's just incredibly sharp, very, very open and interesting, and from a place of extreme intellectual uh, capacity. She's really good at explaining things and is right at Cornell Hospital, I think, still, although worked in Peter Attia's lab. She's really, really smart. So she would be another one.
They sound perfect. So, well, thank you for doing that. And Samantha, thank you so much for taking the time today out of your busy schedule. And I really enjoyed our conversation. I thought I knew you pretty well, and now I feel like I know so much more about you.
Thanks, Aaron. Super fun.